It is 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in November 1998. Brian Bethel is sitting in his car in a parking lot in Abilene, Texas. He is writing a check. The lot is lit. He is not afraid. Then two boys approach his window. They look between 9 and 12 years old. Their clothes are unremarkable. Their voices, when one of them speaks, are calm and flat, older than their faces suggest. They say they want a ride home. They say they have no money for the bus. They say they just need to get inside the car. Brian feels something he will later struggle to describe. Not fear exactly. Something beneath fear. Something his body understands before his mind does. He looks at their faces. And then he looks at their eyes. No whites, no iris, no reflection. Just two black voids where eyes should be. Brian Bethel drove away as fast as he could. He later posted his account on a paranormal forum. He expected to be laughed at. Instead, hundreds of people responded. With the same story, Brian Bethel's account, posted to the Ghost and Hauntings mailing list on January 16, 1998, is the first documented report of what would become known as black-eyed children, or BECs. But here is what makes that origin strange. Within weeks of Bethel's post, accounts began surfacing from people who claimed they had experienced the same encounter years, and in some cases decades, earlier. They had simply never told anyone, because they had no language for what they had seen, no category to place it in. Bethel gave them the words, and then the floodgates opened. Accounts came from the United Kingdom, from Germany, from Japan, from Brazil and Australia and South Korea, from rural villages and city apartments, from people who had never heard of Brian Bethel and had no internet access when their encounters occurred. The details were identical: children, night, a knock or an approach, a request to enter, flat voices, no emotion, and eyes, completely, entirely black. By 2005, paranormal researchers had documented over 300 independent accounts. By 2015, that number had passed 2,000. Today, it is significantly higher. When researchers began cross-referencing accounts, they found a pattern so consistent it bordered on impossible. They always ask permission. Black-eyed children never force entry. They never break windows. They never simply walk in. In every documented account, they ask, politely, repeatedly, insistently, they need to be invited. This is the detail that disturbs researchers most, because it implies a rule, something that governs their behavior, something they cannot cross without consent. The voice is wrong. Witnesses consistently describe the voice as flat, monotone, rehearsed, as if the child learned human speech phonetically but does not understand its emotional content. Some describe a faint echo. Some describe a quality that feels like more than one voice speaking in perfect unison. In 14 documented accounts, witnesses reported that the voice seemed to be coming from inside their own head, not from outside the door. The terror is not rational. This is perhaps the most universally reported element. Not fear of the children specifically. Not fear of what they might do. A deeper, older fear. A fear the body produces before the mind has processed what it is seeing. Witnesses describe the sensation as like standing at the edge of something enormous and dark. Like suddenly knowing on an animal level that you are prey. Several accounts describe witnesses being physically unable to move for seconds after making eye contact. Paralysis. Not theatrical horror movie paralysis. A genuine physical inability to command their own limbs. A woman named Carrie was staying alone in a motel outside Tulsa. At 1:15 a.m., she heard knocking at her door. She looked through the peephole. Two children, a boy and a girl, both appearing around 10 years old, were standing outside. They said they were lost. They said they needed to use the phone. They said they just needed to come inside for a minute. Carrie did not open the door. She called the front desk. The night manager walked to her room. He saw no children. The parking lot was empty. There was no record of any children registered at the motel or reported missing in the area that night. But here is the detail Carrie included that almost no accounts share. When she finally looked away from the peephole, she noticed the carpet at the base of her door. There was water on it, from the outside, in the shape of two small wet footprints. That stopped exactly at the threshold. A farmer in Yorkshire reported two children knocking on his farmhouse door at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday in February. He described the same flat voice, the same request to enter, the same overwhelming dread. But this account added something different. His dog, a large German shepherd that had worked the farm for 6 years, was in the room with him. The dog did not bark, did not growl, did not move toward the door. It was pressed into the corner of the room, shaking, making no sound at all. The farmer did not open the door. In the morning, he found no footprints in the snow outside. The ground was undisturbed. A family in São Paulo, mother, father, and a teenage daughter, were home when the knock came at 11:30 p.m. All three saw the children through the window. All three experienced the same physical paralysis when the children raised their faces and made eye contact through the glass. The mother reported that in the moment of eye contact, she did not feel afraid of the children. She felt afraid of what was standing behind them, something she could not see but could sense. Enormous, patient, and very, very old. Most people do not open the door. Their body makes that decision before their mind does. But some people do. In 2011, a man in Portland, Oregon, we will call him Marcus, reported that he allowed two black-eyed children into his apartment. He said he felt compelled. He said later that it did not feel like his own decision. Once inside, the children stood in the center of the living room. They did not sit. They did not look around. They stood and looked at him. Marcus reported that the next thing he remembered was daylight. It was morning. He was sitting in a chair. The children were gone. He had no memory of anything between the moment they entered and the moment it became light outside. He had a persistent headache for 2 weeks. He experienced vivid nightmares for 3 months, and he developed an inability, which has never fully resolved, to be in a room with windows after dark without covering them. There are 11 documented cases of witnesses who allowed black-eyed children entry. All 11 report memory loss. All 11 report lasting psychological effects. 3 report physical symptoms that their physicians could not explain, including 1 case of temporary blindness lasting 4 days. None of them can explain why they opened the door. Every serious researcher who has investigated black-eyed children has eventually arrived at the same conclusion. The existing frameworks do not fit. The request for permission, the inability to cross a threshold without invitation, the effect on animals, the aftermath in those who let them in. These details align almost perfectly with the behavior ascribed to demonic entities across dozens of independent religious and cultural traditions that had no contact with each other. In Catholic demonology, in certain strands of Islamic theology, in the shamanic traditions of several indigenous cultures, the entity that cannot enter without consent is a recurring, consistent feature. Mass hysteria and suggestion are real and documented phenomena. It is possible that Bethel's 1998 account created a template that subsequent witnesses unconsciously conformed to. This theory has one significant problem. It does not explain the accounts that predate Bethel. It does not explain the woman in rural Japan in 1987 who drew a sketch of a black-eyed child in her diary, 11 years before Bethel posted online. It does not explain the British newspaper account from 1962 The honest answer, after 25 years of documented accounts across every continent, is this. We do not know what black-eyed children are. We know they appear to be children. We know they follow consistent rules of behavior that no human phenomenon explains. We know that those who look into their eyes describe not seeing an absence of soul, but the presence of something else entirely. Something that is wearing the face of a child. Brian Bethel still lives in Texas. He has told his story hundreds of times. He has never changed a single detail. He has never been able to explain what he felt in that parking lot. He says the eyes were not empty. That is the part people get wrong. They were not blank. They were not hollow. They were full of something he does not have a word for. If they knock on your door tonight, and they might, do not open it. Do not speak to them. Do not make eye contact through the glass. And whatever they tell you, whatever reason they give, whatever your body starts to feel in that moment of hesitation, do not let them in.